For decades, this mystery was buried, and the truth will shock you to your core. They told you a story, but the reality is far darker and more twisted than anyone could imagine. What you're about to hear was hidden from the world, until now. And what we uncovered next changes everything. It began with a disappearance that no one could explain. A young woman vanished from her small town one evening, leaving behind a room untouched, a cup of tea half drunk, and questions that echoed through empty streets. Neighbors whispered about screams, but the authorities dismissed it as another runaway case. Yet something about that night didn't fit. No footprints leading away, no sign of struggle, nothing, just silence. Weeks later, a local journalist stumbled upon a series of letters hidden inside the town's oldest library. Each one hinted at disappearances stretching back decades, people who simply vanished, leaving families with nothing but grief. Who could have imagined the truth hiding in plain sight, buried under routine reports and forgotten newspaper clippings? One note, brittle with age, read, "They watch. They take. And no one dares to speak." The more we dug, the stranger it became. Witnesses who had once stayed silent now came forward under anonymity. A retired policeman admitted, in a trembling voice, that key reports had been shredded, for their own protection. What protection? And from whom? Documents surfaced showing that each missing person shared a connection, a local figure of influence, a gathering that no one ever talked about, and a trail of whispers that led to the very heart of the town. But that's not even the worst part. One discovery changed everything. Hidden in a decrepit attic, a diary chronicled events that no one expected. Names, dates, and cryptic symbols filled its pages. It described rituals, strange meetings under the cover of night, and a system of intimidation designed to keep the town silent. The people who promised protection were the very ones responsible. And the story takes an even darker turn. Families had been pawns in something much larger. One widow spoke of a stranger visiting at midnight, handing over unmarked envelopes, whispering warnings she dared not repeat. Another family found messages carved into the walls of their home, letters they hadn't written, yet every word pointed to a single, terrifying conclusion: the disappearances weren't random. Someone, something, orchestrated them with precision. What we found next will leave you speechless. Evidence from forgotten police records, hidden from public archives, linked missing individuals to a shadow network operating beyond scrutiny. Patterns emerged. Birthdays, locations, even personal habits seemed to determine who would vanish next. And every time someone tried to question it, they were silenced, not publicly, but in ways subtle, terrifying, and absolute. No one could explain what happened next. If you want to see what they tried to hide next, stay tuned, because the deeper we went, the more the town itself seemed to resist us. Streets appeared familiar, but every corner held a memory of someone who was no longer there. Photographs disappeared from family albums. Names vanished from official records. The disappearances weren't just crimes, they were being erased from existence. And the diary hinted at a revelation even more shocking. One entry spoke of a witness, someone who had survived an encounter that defied logic. The survivor's account suggested not just danger, but a methodical, almost ritualistic pattern behind each vanishing. Why these people? Why these nights? And how could such things happen in broad daylight, yet remain invisible to those who swore to protect? Everything you thought you knew about this case is about to change. Because what was hidden, for decades, isn't just about missing people. It's about power, control, and a fear so pervasive that even the brave dare not speak. Who knew the full story? And why was it hidden? The answers are darker than you can imagine, and the truth behind it is far more shocking than anyone realized. The investigation is just beginning, and what we uncover next will force us to question everything. Every name, every face, every safe place you thought you knew. No one is immune from the shadows that have been quietly shaping this town's history for generations. The deeper we dug, the more impossible it seemed to separate fact from fear. The missing weren't just unlucky, they were chosen. Evidence pointed to a network so hidden, so carefully constructed, that even those in power denied its existence. Secret meetings, unmarked vehicles, and faces that appeared in places they shouldn't have, all part of a design no one could have imagined. A witness, who requested complete anonymity, revealed something chilling. On the night of a disappearance, she saw figures moving silently through the fog. They weren't masked, but their expressions, empty, calculating, almost inhuman. And the vanishings? Not random. Every person had been observed, their routines memorized, every detail recorded, and every disappearance had a purpose, one that no outsider was meant to understand. Then came the photographs, old, grainy, almost indecipherable. Faces of the missing, seen in places they had no reason to be, caught moments before they disappeared. But here's the twist. In some, there were shadows in the corners, shapes that didn't belong, moving independently of anyone in the room. Could it have been coincidence? Or something else entirely? Something orchestrated beyond human comprehension? What we uncovered next shattered all expectations. A hidden ledger, found behind a false wall in a decaying home, listed names, dates, and strange symbols that corresponded with events in the town, celebrations, anniversaries, even births. Every disappearance coincided with something seemingly ordinary, masking the sinister reality beneath. No one had noticed. Until now. And it wasn't just the people who were gone, it was the evidence itself. Phone records erased, cameras tampered with, witnesses intimidated into silence. One former officer confessed in hushed tones that he had been part of cover-ups, instructed to protect the town's image, even if it meant destroying lives. Who could have imagined the very enforcers of law were also the architects of terror? But that's not all. A surviving relative handed over a journal, detailing her siblings' final days. Entries spoke of whispers in the night, of doors opening by themselves, and of figures standing in the shadows, watching, waiting. And in the last entry, a single line froze her family. They know everything, and they are coming for me next. The fear wasn't paranoia, it was reality. Everything you thought you knew about safety, about trust, about community, was gone. The disappearances weren't random, they were warnings, carefully calculated, messages written in blood and fear. Who controlled it, and why? Every lead, every clue, seemed to point to those no one suspected, those trusted above all. And the more we uncovered, the clearer it became. The truth wasn't meant to be found. Not yet. What we found next will leave you speechless. Hidden rooms, secret tunnels beneath the town, evidence of planning that spanned decades. It wasn't just about taking people. It was about control, influence, and an unshakable power rooted in fear. And those who vanished, some were never meant to return. Others were hidden in ways that defied explanation. If you think you understand what happened, you don't. Because every discovery peeled back another layer of deception. Friends turned strangers, allies became threats, and those who should have protected the innocent? They were part of the system, part of the design. The disappearances weren't mistakes, they were statements. Messages no one wanted decoded. The truth has been buried for decades, but now it's finally coming to light. And the next revelation will change everything you thought you knew. Who orchestrated this? Why were so many allowed to vanish without a trace? And the most terrifying question of all: how many more remain in the shadows, waiting, watching, ready to strike? Check the next episode to uncover more shocking truths. Support in the description, and subscribing keeps you on the front line of every hidden story. Because one thing is certain: the shadows are deeper than anyone ever imagined, and the truth is far from over.